How's it going, Giants fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Training camp day number 2 just wrapped up, and a lot of great takeaways and some down ones, some drop passes across the board for this Giants team. But I will say the progress is showing. It looks like an entirely different team in terms of motion, in terms of advanced and modern analytics being incorporated into the offensive structure and system, just utilizing Saquon Barkley from the slot and out wide and doing very unique and cool things to them out of the backfield. So I'm excited to see how that translates to the real-time game in a couple of weeks here. But the offensive line had some really good outings, had some really good showings. Evan Neal really dominated Kayvon Thibodeau in practice. One underrated receiver, Richie James, coming over from the 49ers, had a stout day. Darnay Holmes had another great day, although he did have a little injury scare. We'll talk about that and some clips that we can throw into the mix to show you guys from today's practice. But Anthony, before we dive into the good stuff, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing excellent. I'm super excited to dive into another day of Giants training camp. Of course, football season is back. Giants training camp is here, and we have some really interesting things to talk about and some interesting things to react to in terms of some of these clips and in terms of some of the quotes coming out and really just everything going on over there next to MetLife Stadium across the street at Quest Diagnostic Center. I think that the Giants, they're really trying to implement something new, something completely different. This team does not look like the same team as last year, which I think will be a breath of fresh air for all of us, right? Because the teams that we've seen in recent years have not been too fun to watch, but this one seems like it's going to be pretty interesting. It looks like the offense is a lot more modernized. One of the things that I saw that took my attention today is I saw a quote from Brian Dable saying that Daniel Jones is wearing a helmet that is connected to Mike Kafka and a headset during practices, and they're going to determine before the regular season who's calling the plays. But right now, it does look like Mike Kafka is going to be the one calling the plays if this stays how it is right now, because he's the one with the headset and he's been calling the plays in practice, which I do find that to be a super interesting takeaway from the first 2 days of camp. But without further ado, Alex, let's dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, straight off the bat, Saquon Barkley is literally speaking right now, and he has some cool things to say. Notably, that he feels like his routine is back to normal. We're talking about the first 2 years of his career, had to over 2,000 all-purpose yards as a rookie. He feels like he's back to that, and that's awesome. He also wanted to say the scheme forces defenses to think before and after every snap. Dable and Kafka are very creative. He really likes the new system. The heavy motion scheme requires you to be locked in and to do your homework off the field. So everything that he's saying, he's back to normal. He feels like he's his rookie self again. The scheme is extremely creative, a lot of motion, a lot of modern stuff built into it. This is like this is like an angel coming down and whispering into our ears. You can enjoy football again, guys. You don't have to suffer through years of inadequacy and Norv Turner's 2004 offense, courtesy of Jason Garrett's dumpster diving dumbass. And finally, I feel good about the future of this team. I have hope. And every year we have this same feeling of hope and excitement, but like we've seen what ugly looks like now. We know what bad looks like. This doesn't look like bad to us. It looks like at least we're in the right direction in terms of a modern system. Of course, we have to prove it on the football field. Nothing has happened yet. We have not seen this team win a game, but at the very least, they're installing a plan and a system that works and that we know is up to date with what other teams are doing and succeeding with. So Anthony, when you're talking about that specifically, how excited are you for the advancement of this offense and Saquon Barkley being like, we got to do our homework off the field if we want to succeed on the field?
Yeah, I mean, thank God the Giants have a quarterback that does his homework and doesn't need a stipulation in his contract requiring him to do 4 hours of studying per week. Shout out to Kyler Murray for that insane contract obligation. But looking at Saquon Barkley and the way that he's been used in the first 2 days of camp, I've been saying it all offseason long. I've been saying it really since the start of last regular season. This man needs to get more involved as a receiver. The Giants need to be more creative with this X factor of a Swiss Army knife of a running back in Saquon Barkley. He needs to be used in motion. He needs to be used in the slot, out wide. They need to get him more involved in the offensive game plan. And so far through 2 days of camp, it looks like he's going to be more involved. And the quotes that he's sharing right now, talking about having to study and really understand the nuances of this offense, that's important, and it shows that this is not, simple Norv Turner offense that Alex was mentioning. This shows that this is more complex, more modern by design, and there's going to be more nuance and more things to really hammer home in terms of the details that the Giants need to iron out come time for the regular season. So when you're taking a look at that and looking at, really what Brian Dable's done with the Bills offense in recent years, making it fully spread and really modernizing that, and then taking a look at where Mike Kafka comes from, Andy Reid, arguably the greatest offensive mind in the NFL right now, very modern offensive style over in Kansas City. That's where Kafka's coming from. I think this is going to be a really exciting offense to watch this year. I know it might not have the most talent in the world, but I think looking at it from a schematic perspective, I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think there's going to be games where maybe the Giants are outmatched in terms of talent because this is a rebuild. They're still putting things together, but I think there's going to be games where maybe they're outmatched in terms of talent, but still they look like they're playing up to the competition level of their opponent because the coaches are smart enough to scheme an offense that puts them in position to make plays. That's what I'm really hoping for, because that's something that we've been missing from the Giants for years now. We've had coaches that have been playing down to below standard level in terms of offensive schematics, but it looks like now it's modernized approach to it. Saquon Barkley is excited. I'm excited. I'm seeing a lot of receivers making interesting plays and lining up in interesting formations. I saw today Kadarius Toney and Wandale Robinson both lining up in the backfield, which I'm sure is something that you want to touch on, Alex. So really excited to see these things in the offensive schematics through the first 2 days of camp.
Yeah, and some of the other guys have really been standing out as well. Someone I'm really high on right now. I know, Anthony, you have your objections to it, but Wandale Robinson, our rookie, small catch radius, small hands. I still think there's a good chance he leads this team in yards as a receiver as a rookie this year, because apparently he's been killing it in practice every single day. Strong practice, strong this. He's route running is fantastic. He's creating separation. He's an extension of the running game. The guy can do a lot of different things for this team, and he's reliable. He hasn't had a littered injury history. So I will say that I think that's a big one, just based on the injury history of the playmakers on this team. Wandale probably has the best of all of them. Kenny Golladay has been injured the last 2 years or so. Of course, Kadarius Toney within the ankle injury last year. Then you have Sterling Shepard injured every single year. Saquon Barkley injured every single year. He's the only guy that I actually feel confident that is going to be on the field every single week. So there is that to consider, but I do think Wandale, with his ability to manufacture production off of screen passes, he can also go downfield. He made a really nice red zone reception yesterday from a beautiful Daniel Jones throw against, I believe it was Aaron Robinson. So he's making plays. Him and Kadarius Toney together on the field at the same time is going to be dangerous, especially with the creativity of this offensive scheme. When you're seeing how well Robinson is playing right now, Anthony, how does it make you feel? As a rookie, I know there's a lot to be desired. We don't know really what he's going to be. We don't know what his role is going to be just yet. But seeing how strong his practices have been, does that give you any indication of like his role or how, incorporated he's going to be into this offense?
How does it make me feel? That's a good question. Warm and fuzzy inside. It makes me really excited. I'm hoping that I'm wrong about Wandale Robinson. I know I wasn't that crazy about the draft pick when they took him in the second round. I said, that's probably a little early for him. He's kind of similar in skill set to Kadarius Toney. Not really sure how he fits in, but so far it looks like the Giants have an exact plan on how he's going to fit in, which is what I said. I said, this might not be my favorite pick right now, but maybe it'll be my favorite pick later, because the main argument that I made after the Giants drafted him was, yeah, you shouldn't draft a gadget player that high in the draft. But if he's the best gadget player in the NFL, then it's a good pick, right? And if that's what the Giants feel like they're getting, a guy who can be an elite gadget player and then grow into something more, then it's going to be a good pick. Screw the projections on draft day and where the guy's supposed to be drafted pre-draft. All that stuff doesn't matter once they hit the field, because we see first round picks get outplayed by seventh round picks every day in the NFL. So really, it doesn't matter where you're drafted. It matters what you do on the field in the regular season. And Wandale Robinson, it's very clear that the Giants have a plan for him about how they want to utilize him. They really like specific things about his skill set, and they're going to try and maximize that skill set through the offensive scheme that I keep mentioning. So I'm really excited to see that he's performing so well through the first 2 days of camp. I think that the Giants do have a plan for him. I think that he's actually shown really good route running as well. Maybe like he's kind of tweaked some things and refined some skills throughout the offseason. It looks like he's been working hard. And so, yeah, Alex, I feel really excited by Wandale Robinson through 2 days, and I'm excited to see what they have in store for him when the regular season rolls around.
Yeah, and here's another kind of big storyline I do want to discuss. Darius Slayton and Richie James, right? Richie James had a tremendous practice today. Again, just practice, hasn't really shown a lot in terms of production in an actual NFL regular season standpoint. But Darius Slayton dropped like 3 or 4 passes today. One of them being a deep ball that went right through his hands. He was wide open. This is something that we've seen routinely with Darius Slayton since being drafted out of Auburn in the 5th round. He is not a good pass catcher in general. He drops a lot of passes. Now, he's a good deep threat, has great speed. He can blow the top off of defenses. But at the end of the day, if you can't catch the football, what do you really do? What is your value? I think that his chemistry with Daniel Jones is the only thing keeping him around right now. If he keeps dropping passes in practice, I don't know if the offense in terms of Kafka and Dable are going to be willing to trust him. I don't know if they're going to be willing to commit to him as an option this year. Maybe they try to trade him. Maybe they cut him and open up the $2 million he's preparing to earn. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe around $2.8 million he's going to earn this season. So if you're looking at, Darius Slayton, who offers you nothing on special teams, in addition, Richie James looked really good today, had a tremendous route against Darnay Holmes. I'll actually throw on the stream right now so you can see the clips that we were talking about. But this is a guy who is kind of showing that he can provide value as a wide receiver and on special teams. Richie James, I'm speaking about specifically. What are your thoughts on Darius Slayton and the drops, and maybe Richie James, competing for that wide receiver 5 spot?
Yeah, I think that spot is up for grabs. I know the depth chart right now is shaping out to be probably number 1, Kenny Golladay, number 2 when he's healthy, Sterling Shepard. You got 3 with Kadarius Toney, and then 4 with Wandale Robinson. And of course, all of those numbers can fluctuate. Maybe Kadarius Toney has a breakout season, becomes a number 1. Maybe Kenny Golladay has a bad season again, falls to 3. Whatever. But those are your top 4 right now. Number 5 is up for grabs, though. Darius Slayton's been here for a few years. He and Daniel Jones had a really solid chemistry in their rookie season. But since then, it's kind of been downhill for Darius Slayton. He almost peaked as a rookie. We thought that he was going to continue to grow, continue to prove himself, and become a better player year by year. But honestly, I have to say, I think the changes in coaching staff really, really stunted his growth. I think Jason Garrett coming in, trying to use Darius Slayton one way versus how Pat Shurmur used him the other way this season prior, I think that stunted his growth. We all know it stunted Daniel Jones's growth, so why wouldn't it stunt the growth of the wide receivers as well? Well, I think that it did. And right there, that's the clip of Richie James, and I think that he's going to be a solid player for the Giants. Honestly, if I have to take a look at it right now, Darius Slayton versus Richie, I think that Richie's going to take that spot because Darius Slayton's drops are a problem and his cap hit is a little bit high. If you're taking a look at the money that they could save by trading or releasing Darius Slayton before the season starts, you're talking about taking that money and maybe rolling it over into next year's salary cap space, or maybe investing in a better tight end for the season, or maybe some depth at cornerback or nose tackle. There's a couple spots where the Giants could use some added depth, and they could potentially move on from Darius Slayton, where they seem to have some decent depth at wide receiver right now. Not saying they have a bunch of superstars, but they have a bunch of quality players, a bunch of players who can play in the regular season. So it might be wise to move on from Darius Slayton if he's not able to get these drops in order by the time training camp ends. Training camp is the time to make these drops. It's the time to make these mistakes. But honestly, I was hoping Darius Slayton, after the rough season that he had last year with all the drops, I was hoping that he would return to the field in training camp, no drops, just look like the rookie version of himself, because he didn't have that many drops as a rookie. It was really the last 2 years where his drops have kind of gotten out of hand. So again, Darius Slayton is a guy that I really like. I've been a huge fan of his since he entered the league in 2019. But like I said, he's regressed each year, and I'm just kind of disappointed with that. I thought we would see more progression from him, and we haven't. So it's a little disappointing to see him get to camp, continue dropping passes. I know Kenny Golladay also dropped a couple of passes, but it's early. It's only the second day of camp. Maybe these guys can turn around. Maybe Slayton in particular can turn it around and prove himself worthy. But I think what it's really going to come down to is preseason. Once preseason kicks off, if Richie is better than Darius, we're going with Richie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the value he provides on special teams is something that we have to note, because Darius Slayton doesn't offer anything in that facet. So I'm curious to see how this unfolds. I think that's an underrated position battle that we should be aware of and watching in the coming weeks and days here. So we keep you guys updated on that and any little clips that we can find, of course. But another thing that I do want to point out is Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau faced off today a little bit. Evan Neal apparently won that battle pretty easily. That doesn't say anything about Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously a great player, but Evan Neal, how amazing is it to have 2 bookend tackles? Oh my God, it feels like a godsend to have 2 really great tackles, or at least we expect Evan Neal to be a quality guy moving forward. Of course, maybe have some rookie bumps, but I think overall have a tremendous career. Physical guy, massive human being. He's going to be an immediate upgrade as a run blocker over Nate Solder, and probably a pass blocker as well. And if he wasn't, I'd be very, very disappointed. But Daniel Jones is going to be one that really enjoys the most production because of great tackle play. Guards, you can get away with having average to slightly below average guards at some points, but having great tackles, it really changes everything for you. It really makes a difference. So I'm excited to see kind of how these two guys develop together. And if Neal can take that big step forward as a rookie and really show us that, he can hold it down on his side of the line and really open up the game for Daniel Jones, allow him to be a little bit more creative, get through his progressions, wait for his receiver to get downfield, and to help this offense just kind of develop as a whole. But, how exciting is it to see the iron sharpens iron, Kayvon Thibodeau versus Evan Neal kind of match up there? This is going to be a fun one to watch during camp.
Yeah, it's going to be a thrill to watch this during camp. I love everything that I'm hearing about Evan Neal so far. I really wish I was at training camp just so I could see the stature of this man. Everyone keeps saying he's just as advertised, a humongous human being on the field, and he's just towering over everybody and dominating everybody. I can't wait to see him play for Big Blue, man. I think it's going to be so much fun just to see the Giants have two good tackles, right? When was the last time the Giants had two good tackles? And thankfully, neither one of them dealing with injuries. Andrew Thomas also not on the PUP or the NFI, anything like that. He's healthy. He said some really nice things about Evan Neal, called him hardworking, said that he's looked really good during camp. Can't wait to see him get this down because he's going to be dominant. There were some great quotes from Andrew Thomas about Evan Neal. And, no reason to be worried with Kayvon Thibodeau. We know he's going to be as advertised as well. Keep in mind, he actually is coming off of an injury, so maybe he's a little slow. But everybody's saying that his first step is really quick, just like it was at Oregon. Everybody's saying that he looks impressive at camp. It's just maybe Evan Neal right now looks a little bit more pro-ready, maybe looks a little bit more impressive, but really there's no cause for concern with Kayvon Thibodeau. Both of these guys, I think, are going to be studs from day one. I think once we roll around to the regular season, you're going to be talking about arguably the best rookie tackle to come out in the last 3 years. He's going to be competing with the likes of Tristan Wirfs and Rashawn Slater, but I really think that Evan Neal is that level of talent where he can stack up against those guys in the rookie seasons that they had. And when you're talking about Kayvon Thibodeau, I think you're talking about an edge rusher talent that's coming out of the first round that could probably stack up with other edge rushers like Nick Bosa and Myles Garrett that have come out in recent years. I really think that highly of both of these players. I actually did prefer Kayvon Thibodeau to Aiden Hutchinson leading up to the draft. I thought his ceiling was so much higher, and I think that that's probably what the Giants were thinking as well. This guy is limitless potential, and I think the same for Evan Neal. So I'm really excited to watch that. But Alex, I want to also mention to you the offensive line configurations for the first couple days of practice. Now, right now, they've got Shane Lemieux starting with the first team at left guard, and they have Joshua Ezeudu with the second team at left guard, and they have Max Garcia at right guard with the second team. And I think that's a little bit interesting because this is something that we've discussed a couple of times with Max Garcia, Pro Bowl alternate last year. We thought maybe he could be competing for the starting left guard job, but looks like he's competing for the backup or right guard job right now, unless maybe they make some changes midway through camp. But I did think that was a little interesting. So I kind of want to hear your take on the left guard position battle because I know that's one that we're going to be watching all summer long.
So here's my take on that. I think they know what Max Garcia is at left guard. They don't need to see him in training camp. They don't know what Shane Lemieux is. They don't know what Josh Ezeudu is. I think they want to see the chemistry. They want to see the development and growth if they can take some steps forward in terms of technique, fundamentals, whatever it might be. And they have Max Garcia essentially just kind of backing up the right guard spot, getting the reps at right guard where he has less experience. That way he can help Mark Lewinsky and just kind of be that backup kind of guy to him. And best case scenario, Lemieux or Ezeudu lock down that left guard spot. They end up looking really good this spring. And then you have Max Garcia on a 1-year deal, like $1 million. He's making no money. There's no harm in keeping him as a veteran backup on this team that knows the offense, knows the system. He's not going to be, in my opinion, I don't think he'll be cut because I think he offers so much value at such a cheap price point. Like you said before, he's a Pro Bowl alternate. You don't find guys like that on a 1-year, $1 million deal. And you don't cut guys like that because they can offer you a ton of value. They know what they have at left guard in him. If any of those guys struggle considerably, they can put him in at left guard and not skip a beat, in my opinion. And they can, ride into the sunset with that configuration. But that's kind of my take on that. I do hope that Josh Ezeudu is the one that wins that battle because, again, you have an extra year. Nothing against Shane Lemieux. If he wins it, then all the best to him. I hope that he crushes it. But I just think Ezeudu, because of the, he was the draft pick this year from Joe Shane and Brian Dable. Also, he has that extra year on his rookie contract where Lemieux now only has 2 years left. Until he's either got to be extended or they let him walk in free agency. I think Ezeudu winning that battle gives them more longevity and experience and reps with Andrew Thomas and John Feliciano. So that's kind of why I'd prefer him to win that. But again, let the best men win. This is not a situation where I'm like, giving starting jobs away like we have in the past. I want the best guy to come out and compete and win that job fair and square. So I think that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree. That's my take as well. I am also rooting for Joshua Azidu to take that spot, but honestly, right now it does look like Shane Lemieux is going to take that spot. He's coming off of that injury, but he seems completely healthy. And I know a lot of people are talking about the 17 snaps or whatever that he had against the Broncos last year and saying that he played really well in those 17 snaps. Again, not putting too much stock into 17 snaps, but Shane Lemieux has been here for a few years. This is his third season in the NFL. He does have an experience edge over Joshua Azidu, and there's going to be growing pains for Joshua Azidu. So maybe the Giants will be wise to have Shane Lemieux start there and then see if this is more of a regular season battle that progresses. If Shane Lemieux doesn't play up to par, then maybe during practice, if Joshua Azidu is playing well, then maybe sometime during the regular season he can take over. But again, I think that a lot of these position battles, we talk about them being camp battles, but I really think they're more preseason battles. Once we see Shane Lemieux get on the field against other opponents, see how he performs in the preseason, and then see how Joshua Azidu performs, that's where things are going to get really interesting because, if Shane Lemieux goes out there in preseason, lets up 2 sacks and 2 drives, and Joshua Azidu goes out there and plays a whole half and he doesn't let up any sacks, we're going to be talking about Joshua Azidu trying to win that starting job. So it's going to be really interesting. Again, that's my number one position battle that I'm keeping an eye on. And I'm super excited to see who takes the cake.
Absolutely. So this kind of wraps up the main takeaways from today's practice. Obviously, a lot of good stuff here. So much fun to talk about stuff that's relevant, and we're actually getting real-time updates and news for you guys. So I hope you guys appreciated that as always. Another little note here that Wandale Robinson and Daniel Bellinger both were with the ones today, the first team, which is really great to see. Bellinger obviously coming off the PUP list yesterday after the quad injury, so nothing serious there. Azeez Ojulari is still dealing with, I believe, a tight hamstring he suffered last week in a kind of a non-football contact injury setting. So we'll keep you guys updated on that as well. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Fireside Giants. Make sure to like and subscribe for daily updates. As always, the best of the best for you. Nothing but that. And we'll start doing some giveaways. We have some merch coming out soon that I want to give away to you guys to help build this community and platform even more. So really appreciate all the love as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.